Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining us for Cameo's second webinar of the year. It's in our webinar series, Third Thursdays. I'm Heidi Pickman. I'm the Associate Director for Cameo, and we have a tight group here, so I'm not going to mute everybody. So if you could do us a favor and mute yourself, and you can unmute yourself unless you're talking. We're going to be talking about some policy issues from Washington and Sacramento. There's a lot going on. We're really excited. This is quite the policy year. Our agenda today is, first we're going to hear from Ann Sullivan. She's the president of Madison Services Group and our Woman in D.C. on federal policy. Then we're going to talk with Jesse Torres, who is let me get this right, Jesse, you have a long title, the Deputy Director for Small Business and Innovation from the California's Governor's Office of Business and Economic Development, otherwise known as GO-Biz. And we have Gabe Villarreal, who's the policy guru at Opportunity Fund, who's agreed to join us this afternoon. And Mark Herbert, who was supposed to join us he's the California Director for Small Business Majority, talking about some other state issues that are going on. He was supposed to join us and may make it. He had a last-minute emergency, and so we'll stay tuned toward the end of the hour. I'm just going to see who we've got here and ask you to tell us where you're from. And I'm going to just go down the list. Francisca, where are you from? She might not be dialed in yet. Francisca, are you here? Okay, Gabriel? Gabe?
Yep. Hi, Heidi. I'm here.
Great. And Jane. Jane, who are you with?
Arcata Economic Development.
Hi, Jane. All the way up.
Hello.
We've got the whole state covered, from San Diego all the way up to Arcata. Yeah. And then we have Patricia Carrillo is here. Patricia from Alba. And Will, you want to introduce yourself to the group?
Yeah, hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. I'm Will Von Geldern. I'm Director of Advocacy and Ventures, which was formerly known as Washington Cash, up in Seattle. So we just started an advocacy program for the first time, and I am here to learn.
Great. Excellent. Welcome. So we've got a nice and is there anybody, sure, and is there anybody on the phone who I did not mention?
Oh, I'm sorry, I was a little late. I'm Francisca from Axiom, serving Southern California.
Oh, Francisca. Anybody else?
And Jen Leibovich from Main Street Lunch in Oakland.
Hi, Jen.
Hi.
Great. For those of you who are on the phone, if you could just mute yourself, that would be fantastic. And I am now going to turn it over to Ann Sullivan, the President of Madison Service Group, and she's going to talk about federal policy.
Hi, everybody. Thank you, Heidi, for putting this together. We're in full swing with appropriations for programs that Cameo cares about, and busy talking to members of Congress about funding levels that Cameo supports. And so I'm going to first talk about FY18 Omnibus. So that was passed in, I think, March 23rd, which is really late to pass a yearly appropriations that actually the year started on October 1st. So you may have been the recipient of delayed funding. Grants get pushed back, and so there's a lot of repercussions for the Congress to be waiting this late in the year to fund the program. So what you can be sure of is this last quarter of this fiscal year is now just going to be, money rolling out the door and grant proposals, and, it kind of creates a lot of chaos not only for the federal folks that run the programs, but also for people that are trying to work with the federal folks. So I'm just going to bump through some of what we requested, what Cameo requested, and what the funding ultimately was for FY18, which we're still in. It ends the end of the last day of September, which September is 30, I think. But so here's what you need. Here's what I think you should take a look at and know is coming your way with respect to program funding. The first thing that we talk about, and that is important to Cameo and its members, is the microloan program. We requested $44 million for the microloan program lending. The actual amount was $36 million. Then there's a technical assistance part of the microloan program, which maybe some of you are involved in. We asked for $31 million, and the appropriation matched our request, which is $31 million. Some of you on the phone may also be grant recipients of the PRIME program, and it's an important program. And frankly, Cameo and AEO, I think, are the only ones that fight for the PRIME program every single year. And by hook or crook, we somehow end up getting it funded, although it could use a lot more money. But the fact that it isn't shut down is just kind of testament to the advocacy of both groups to keep this going. We requested $10 million. The appropriation was $5 million. Women's business centers are an important, part of the entrepreneurial assistance program for women. Cameo last year decided to ask for $100 million, which was far above what really any funding has ever been. But Claudia Wieck was the president at the time and felt like we needed to make a statement by asking for such a big number. So the Congress appropriated $18 million. That's what it has been for the last year or two. And frankly, that was up from $14 million, which I think was at least for a decade that I can remember. So there has been an increase, but the final amount was $18 million. For small business development centers that SBA funds, Cameo requested $130 million, and the Omnibus funded it at $130 million. Those were SBA programs. I just want to talk to you about the one program, that is so important to all of us, which is the CDFI program, but that comes under the Treasury Department. So that's not an SBA program, it's Treasury, funded by the Treasury. And we asked for $250 million last year. And by the way, the president had requested zero. Like he was in his budget submission said that in fact, he thought the CDFI fund was unnecessary. But the CDFI fund has a lot of advocates, and the folks that the CDFI fund helps all kicked into gear, and so the funding level was at $250 million, which is really a testament again to advocacy. The CDFI bond guarantee program, we asked for $1 billion, and the appropriated amount was $500 million.
Anne, can I ask a question before you go on?
Yes.
Who are some of those strong advocates of the CDFIs?
So,
and I meant to also ask about the PRIME program too.
Okay. So the PRIME program is literally AEO, which is, I think everybody on the phone is probably familiar with. It's the Association for AEO. Enterprise Opportunity. Sorry, I always talk about AEO and forget what it stands for. And we're their policy team as well. And I think probably a lot of people on the phone either know about AEO or are members. So AEO fights for PRIME, and Cameo fights for PRIME. And Cameo comes to Washington every year and meets with the entire delegation or close to it, meets with the appropriators, and puts in a real pitch for CDFI. I mean, for the Prime program. And that's really the two groups that really carry all the weight when it comes to saving that program. The CDFI program has, go ahead.
Oh, no, I was going to say, who in Congress? Like, who are the Congress people who are most
Who are the congressional people?
Yeah.
It used to be the ranking member that saved it for a long time, and it was Jose Serrano from New York. But he rolled off of the subcommittee that determines these numbers, and so we were really, really worried. But in fact, the ranking member this year is Mr. Quigley from Illinois, and he ended up being a proponent. The other person in the Senate that seemed to care about it was Senator Shelley Moore Capito from West Virginia. She also seemed to take an interest in it this last year. But there are not very many advocates in Congress, but, every year we really work to try to make sure that the ones that are step up and help. Jesse Torres just said, what was the president's rationale for CDFI being zeroed out? I don't quite remember the rationale, but it was something along the lines of it's unnecessary that the private sector should be able to take should be able to take it private rather than being publicly supported. And we're talking about the CDFI fund. It's a rationale that they use a lot of times when they're trying to find programs or extra money by doing away with something. And that I remember as being the rationale.
Oh, can I add something?
Yes.
It says the administration's reasoning. Hi, this is Lizzie Sullivan. I'm also on the Cameo policy team here in Washington. The administration's reasoning said that the program has been so successful that it is no longer necessary.
There you go. Don't be too successful. They're trying to get rid of you. Okay. And then you ask about the CDFI fund, who the advocates are in Congress. Well, in the nonprofit world, there's a lot of people, not just AEO, not just Cameo, Opportunity Fund. There's just a lot of people that support it, and NCRC that support this program. And the folks in Congress, again, that we worked with closely was Senator Shelley Moore Capito from West Virginia. She was really the senator that cared the most about it, I would say. A number of Democrats also weighed in. I think I remember Senator Booker being one. I think Senator Durbin was another. There are a number of folks in the Senate that think CDFI is worth keeping. And then in the House, again, it was that House Appropriations Subcommittee that funds this program. It's called FFSGG, and it's Financial Services and General Government. That's the subcommittee under the Appropriations. And on that subcommittee, there are actually a number of folks on that subcommittee that support CDFIs, including the chair from Georgia, Tom Graves, which really helps. If the chair thinks your program is important, it's a lot easier to get it funded. We're going to turn to the USDA programs that Cameo supports. The Rural Business Development grants, we asked for $35 million, and $34 million was appropriated, which I think is phenomenal because that's not always the case. The one program that wasn't funded was the Rural Micro-Entrepreneur Assistance Program, or we know it as RMAP. That funding for the last 3 or 4 years has kept on going down, 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 and we asked for a modest $3 million, but nothing was appropriated. Under the USDA, there's also an intermediary lending program that was funded at $8.829, and Cameo has a big emphasis on producer grants and agriculture. So the value-added producer grant, we asked for $11 million, and actually we under-asked, which is so rare. $16 million was appropriated. So there's in Congress there's appropriators and there are authorizers. So in order to get money for a program, generally speaking, the committee that has jurisdiction over that agency and its programs has to agree it's a good idea. And so that's why I just wanted to spend a minute or two just telling you what the House Small Business Committee supported in the SBA programs. And it's for FY19. So I'm saying that because appropriations is already in full swing. But before the Appropriations Committee makes any decisions, they ask the authorizers, like the House Small Business Committee that has jurisdiction over SBA, what are their thoughts on funding. So I just want to run down, it's just kind of interesting information about what they think. I wanted to include the Senate as well, their views and estimates, that's what it's called. But it's not public yet, and so I couldn't include that. Let me just bump down through this. The Community Advantage Program, what the committee said was the current authorization level of $26.5 billion should be sufficient. Because so many firms rely on the Community Advantage Program, they might consider some Advantage Program reform just to make sure the program is functioning the way it ought to. The committee did not like the real estate, the real estate loans, which is the 504 program. They think it needs to be reformed, and they just don't want any allocation of funds right now. The microloan program, they said because the microloan default rate is close to zero, there is a cost to subsidize the difference between market interest rates and the rates charged to intermediaries. Because of the program's effectiveness in creating jobs, the committee believes that the program's small subsidy is a wise investment. So that's really good news. They have not always supported this program, the microloan program. So this is, again, a result of a lot of advocacy and a lot of talking in Congress about how this program assists entrepreneurs and the key role it plays. And you can see that in the way it turned. It's been turned. SBDCs, it says in the past the committee have said it believes SBA undervalues the SBDCs and has supported a small increase of funds to be reallocated from SBA-created initiatives to the SBDC program. The committee may undertake legislation in this Congress to make further improvements to the SBDC program. So look for that. That's a clue that there may be some proposed changes from the Small Business Committee. SCORE, they like SCORE. They think SCORE is a great program. This is what they said about women's business centers. The committee believes that women's business centers should return to their original mission and work to provide counseling to women in underserved areas rather than duplicating the efforts of SBDCs. During this Congress, the committee may consider legislation to make improvements to the WBC program. I thought that was a really interesting comment from the committee. I don't think the women's business centers are duplicative. I think SBDCs and women's business centers coexist quite nicely, and I don't know why they think it's duplicating, but nevertheless, that's what the committee has said. I'm going to stop there. There's some other procurement programs, other priorities, but I don't think we'll go into that for this group. I just want to finish my remarks by talking about FY19 appropriations requests. This is what we're requesting for FY19, which starts in October. For microlending, we asked for $44 million. that request is up from last year. We believe that the community believes that there may be room for increased micro lending for this program. We ask for $31 million for the technical assistance, and that's what we asked for last year. That's what was appropriated, so that seems to be on good footing. We ask for FY19. We ask for the Prime program to be $10 million. That's $5 million up from last year. And not five. We asked for $10 million last year. We're asking for it again. But remember, I said earlier we got $5 million. So it's gonna be a huge fight. One, just to keep the Prime program in place, but second, to try to get increased funding. And we could probably use all of your help. For women's business centers, we requested $21.75 million because there's a bill in Congress that's moving through Congress that is on the authorization side that suggests the authorization for the program ought to be $21.75 million. So we're simply matching what that bill would authorize in asking for appropriations, and it's an increase from $18 million. Small business development centers, we asked for a small increase of, I say small increase, $10 million. I know. These numbers are crazy, but that's what we're going to ask. We asked for this year. For the CDFI fund, we asked for $300 million for FY19, and for the bond guarantee program, we asked for $1 billion, even though only $500 million was appropriated. On the USDA side, we asked for $35 million. The RMAP program, remember I said it was zeroed out this year, but we asked again for $3 million. The intermediary relending program, we asked for $19, and it looks like we may have under asked again for the value-added producer grants because if you remember earlier, I said that they actually appropriated $16 million. So we may want to adjust that. Yeah, we're going to adjust that to make sure that it fits what was appropriated in FY18. So I think that concludes my presentation on what's happening in the federal funding cycle. What we ask for, what we support, what Cameo supports. I'm going to make a pitch here that everybody on this call send a letter reflecting these numbers to your delegation. Reinforce the ask that Cameo did as an organization by also sending letters from your organization to your delegation. It will really help. I happen to know Will is not from California, he's from Washington State. So Will, that would be great if you could reinforce the funding request from the Washington State delegation. We'd appreciate it.
And we can send you the Word doc of our letter, and then you guys can just kind of copy off that and to make it easy.
Right. It makes it really simple.
Yeah. Yeah. And what's the timing on all of this? So what happens, what are we looking at here?
So right now the House appropriators are holding hearing from their own members of Congress, and we'll start the hearings shortly from the outside groups and folks that are interested. So let me see, we're in April. We're at the end of April. So May is probably when the hearings start, and probably when some of the markups end up being is May, June. So that's kind of the timetable in the House. In the Senate, once again, the Senate is going to try to actually pass appropriations bills. It has been quite unsuccessful in the past, but they have a new chair, Richard Shelby from Alabama, and he said that he really wants the Senate to start working on a better schedule. The first week of June is when he was hoping that they could bring some of the appropriations bills to the Senate floor. They really haven't started much of the work, so they'll have to work pretty quickly. That kind of remains to be seen. But that's kind of the Senate schedule, at least how what the chair envisions.
So we should do our letters in the next month or so, right?
Right, exactly. You should do your letters now. The sooner the better on both sides. And then I need to say with that Senate thought was another thought which the chair said there probably will be some need for an omnibus again this year. So there may be a mix between some appropriations bills going the way that you were taught in civics class, and then there will probably at the end of the year be an omnibus bill to kind of clean up what wasn't passed.
Does anybody have any other questions for Ann? Does anybody, now's your time to ask her? We've got her on the phone. If a question comes to you and you can always email me, and I can make sure that Ann gets it.
Thank you, Heidi.
Yeah. Well, no, thank you, Ann, for that. I think we had a really great year last year, surprisingly.
It started out really rocky, but somehow we managed to muddle through it pretty nicely.
Yeah, I mean, it was a lot better than, we didn't win everything, but it was a lot better. When I saw the numbers, it was a lot better than we could have expected. So thank you for all your hard work. I know that you pound the pavement quite a bit for us, and yes, and we will get that letter that you all can send out to your delegation. Right. That'd be great. Great. Well,
there was one more question. It was just said when I said there is probably going to be an omnibus bill at the end of the year, what I meant was the end of the calendar year. Usually the way this works is appropriations bills may or may not go the whole way to the president for a signature by the time the fiscal year ends, which is September 30th. When that doesn't happen, and it hasn't for like 10 years or so, or maybe even longer, when that doesn't happen, then the Congress passes a continuing resolution, because rather than shut down, they just say continue doing what you need to do at last year's levels, right? So that's called a continuing resolution. And that usually goes on for, especially with election year, that'll go on sometime through December. And then an omnibus bill, which kind of funds everything that hadn't been funded by September 30th, ends up being passed, and usually that's right around when I'm trying to take a Christmas vacation. So I anticipate that will probably be about the same timing this year.
Yeah, of course, right?
All right.
Great. Are there any more questions for Ann? Then we let her go. Okay, great. Well, we're going to, Ann, thank you again so much, and we're going to quickly switch gears so we have enough time to get through and move on to our state stuff. So thank you, and I know you have to be somewhere, so really appreciate your time.
Thanks, everybody.
Great. Switching gears to the state, some more like fantastic news. I literally jumped up and down when I heard it back in January. The state has decided to make a historic investment in small business technical assistance. It's kind of a parallel process going on right now. There's something happening in the legislature with AB 2463 called the Small Business Assistance Act of 2018, and that's sponsored by Assembly members Quirk Silva and Cervantes down south. We're very grateful to their leadership on this, and we had invited Toni Symonds to come and speak on about the bill, but she was unable to make it. But I could tell you that it did pass out of its first committee, the Jobs, Economic and Development, and the Economy Committee. It lays out some frameworks to kind of allocate the money, some money that the governor has put in his budget for small business assistance. He's put in $20 million. This has not happened in quite a long time. We're very excited. And what we think is going to happen is that basically the bill is going to get rolled into the budget process in kind of a trailer bill. And the GO-Biz, who's going to run the program, and the budget money needs some kind of legislative action to basically allocate the money and run the program. And here to talk a little bit more about it is our friend Jesse Torres. And Jesse, thanks for coming on. And just so before you start, I just want to know that there was a couple people who joined us. I have muted you because you were making some noise. So if you can mute your phone, I'll unmute you in a minute or two. And Jesse, take it away.
Awesome. Thank you, Heidi. And first, I definitely want to say just give a note of appreciation to Cameo, because Cameo has been really supporting this kind of program, this kind of budget allocation for many years, even when I was serving as a regional director for Orange County SBDC network, and then later on LA SBDC network. So just want to say thank you to all of those at the Cameo network that have been supporting us along the way in this kind of effort. But yeah, so just wanted to give you an overview about what we're looking to do here, and also kind of just share the exciting news that yes, so in the governor's proposed budget, there's an allocation in there, $20 million, to really expand the capacity of the federal technical assistance programs that service small businesses here in the state. So this money goes kind of above and beyond what we've been doing for the past few years in supporting the Small Business Development Center network through state funds. We've been funding them kind of the $2 to $3 million level in the area of capital infusion support. So essentially this takes it a step further. This expands the dollar amount from that $3 million to $20 million, and also now includes any federal partner that is providing services to small business owners and entrepreneurs here in the state. So that includes Women's Business Centers, Small Business Development Centers, Minority Business Development Centers, all those different acronyms that are operating here in the state will be eligible to request funds from GO-Biz to help expand out their program. So, as Heidi mentioned, we're going through the budgetary process right now. Kind of the next kind of big, I would say, hurdle is that there's going to be a Senate budget for pre-hearing tomorrow they'll be at, and then there'll be the actual budget hearing next week on the 26th. And I know Cameo has been putting out, requests for letters of support to enable us through the entire process. So again, thank you to Cameo for that. But definitely, if anybody has any questions about how to provide support, you're more than welcome. And then just to give some additional kind of detail about what we're looking to achieve with the program. So really, the intent of the program is to expand out and increase the capacity of the programs. So really, in kind of working with Department of Finance on the nuance of the program, really the goal isn't to supplant existing local match, but really to add on to it. So this is an opportunity for all those programs to, maybe do work that they've always wanted to do, but just haven't been able to do in the past, whether that's servicing minority entrepreneurs or working in rural areas, working in, maybe low wealth communities. This is the opportunity for them to expand their reach, or maybe to focus in on particular segments of the business community that they've always wanted to, but just have been able to. As a former SBDC regional director, I knew that there was tremendous need and not enough funding support to be able to do everything. So we're hoping that this is kind of the next step in the growth of these programs. It's exciting to be part of the effort to have the state commit even more resources to important partners. I'm a technical assistant. I don't think there's anything more valuable than that one-on-one consulting mentorship that goes into helping business owners make critical decisions. So I'm really excited to see it all move forward. I know there's still definitely a lot of work to be done to make sure we get this over the finish line. But just really appreciate all of your support in pushing this forward. I'm not sure, Heidi, if there's anything else you really wanted me to touch upon as far as in the nuance of the program.
I don't know. I think now might be, if anybody has any questions to ask Jesse, he's here with us. I mean, I guess our big question, and you can feel free to chime in, anybody, if you want to. Our big question is, I guess, the timing of the whole thing. So
sure.
if you could kind of just fill us in on that.
Yeah, well, in a perfect scenario, this would all be said and done by June 15th. So everything will be committed by then, and I can tell you that on our side, we're already getting ready for success. So thinking through about the official kind of RFP that would be used to distribute out the funding. We're working on that already and kind of sketching out what the approach could look like. As you know, that it becomes much more complicated and complex because instead of working with just one federal technical assistance program like the SBDC, now we would be working with the entire family of federal programs, and each one has its own set of criteria and nuance as far as how they determine match and the kind of services they provide and how they do their work. So we're going to have to be a little bit more thoughtful about how do we ensure that everybody's being compliant and that the work is being done effectively and that we're administering the program in the right way. So but we don't want to put the horse too far ahead of the car, or the car before the horse, however you say. So we got to be kind of careful about that. But already, if you have feedback for us to consider or thoughtful suggestions, we're more than ready to hear it.
Great. And then the RFP process. Mm-hmm. My question just slipped my mind. The criteria, so for the RFP process, that's sort of what you're working on now. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, you can kind of see even the. I don't know if you had a chance to kind of share the kind of the language that's been associated with the program thus far, the Taylor Bill suggested language. But you can kind of already kind of see some of the evaluation criteria that we'll be looking at as far as the framework for the RFP. The RFP itself will have much more detail and instructions about how to report out on successes or how to move forward on the implementation of your programming. Mm-hmm. But you can see some of that kind of early framework language about what we're going to be looking for when it comes to the evaluation criteria already.
Great. I can send out that's the link to the budget change proposal. Is that right?
Yeah, exactly. You'll see kind of as an attachment in there. You also see some of the kind of critical metrics that we're going to be looking to collect. So things like the size of the businesses assisted, the city and the county, the industry sectors, getting some narrative back about the services that are provided and their effectiveness. So pretty much nothing that's really kind of out of line of what's already being reported out to the federal agencies, but with maybe just a little bit more kind of specific detail that we care about here in the state.
Great.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, go ahead, please.
Is this $20 million just for SBDCs, or could a CDFI who provides technical assistance also apply?
Yeah, and the CDFI could apply. If you're providing technical assistance services, you could apply. I know that a number of CDFIs already kind of have either a federal program already kind of coexisting with them or are running a federal program. But if you're offering direct technical assistance as a CDFI, you would be eligible. So kind of the key criteria is, one, are you supporting California-based businesses? Two, are you a recognized kind of federal program that provides technical assistance? And then kind of third, are you able to receive state funds to further your program? If you essentially meet those three criteria, you would be eligible to apply.
Mm-hmm. So if you're an SBA TA provider, that doesn't disqualify you that you received TA funds from another federal agency?
No.
Okay, great.
Yeah, again, this includes the entire suite. So if you're USDA funded or Commerce, you would be eligible as well.
And what amount did you say it increased from 1 million to 20 million? Is that what you said?
Currently, what we're providing to the SBDC program is $3 million.
Oh, so that's huge.
Yeah, it's a pretty big jump, and the objective is that this is $20 million every year for the next 5 years.
That was my question. Thank
you. Oh yeah,
the
funding amount. Yep.
Yeah. So it's funding for the next 5 years. Does the election affect that? Is the fact that we're in an election year, will that affect that? No. Oh, good.
No, but but just like with the federal,
yeah.
I guess subject to appropriation, right? So if
right.
if something terrible happens to the state economy, then there'll have to be kind of reconsideration of that.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah. Did you say $20 million over 5 years, or $20 million each year for 5 years?
Each year.
That's great.
I mean, I was jumping up and down when I heard this, just for the $20 million for 1 year, literally, and then when I found out it was 5 years, and so I know, Jesse, in the position that you've been in at the governor's office, the governor's office of Business and Economic Development, GO-Biz, that you've played an instrumental part in making sure this happens. So again, I know I've thanked you like everywhere we've been, but it's we really appreciate the effort, and I know a lot of people also trying to, but yeah, I know we're really excited, and thanks.
Sure. Yeah, I'm trying to play it really cool, although inside, jumping up and down. But yeah, and but I'll just say that this, there are so many steps that have led to this moment. Obviously, there's still a lot to be done and to get over the line, but we couldn't have gone here if not for the success of the current capital infusion program. We have the SBDCs, the meticulousness that we require them to follow in regards to reporting out on their outcomes. If there hadn't been ground level support from all of your organizations about the value of this kind of consulting work, mentorship work, I mean, all of it, over the course of really a decade, when you think about it, has kind of led to this opportunity. And so, I know the governor's, committed to supporting small business. If this can be kind of the last feather in the cap for my unit, that would be tremendous. But I hope also that this is just kind of the next step, that, we'll see further advancements in this kind of work. So, but thank you all for your support.
I love that direction. With that, Jesse, thank you so much. I'm going to let you go. I know you probably have lots of other things to do. Thank you so much.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye. I am going to just give a quick update on a couple of other state issues that are happening. That $20 million sort of kind of, for Cameo members, dwarfs it a little bit, but there's some really cool stuff happening in California, and I wanted to just point it out. There is a bill called AB 626. It expands on the cottage kitchen rules, which Cameo was very involved with a few years ago, that allowed up to $35,000 and $50,000 in income being earned out of a home kitchen, without having to go to a commercial kitchen for certain items, and they were kind of non-perishable things like jams, jellies, salsas. I think bread was allowed, candies, certain things like that. AB 626 would expand it to allow home cooked meals, and it's moving. It's right now it's being re-referred to the Committee on Health. The committee, I think it had some amendments, so it's going through the process. We'll see. We'll keep you apprised on what's happening with that. SB 946 is a LARA bill, and it's to decriminalize sidewalk vendors. There's some really kind of not so nice things happening to sidewalk vendors, and this would decriminalize them, and it talks about a permit process. And I know, Gabe, I don't know if you have anything to add to that, and I think it's, I'm not sure where it is right now. Do you know where it is?
Sure, yeah. So as of April 11th, the bill has passed out of Government and Finance Committee, and I don't know what its next step is.
The full Senate. I found it.
Senate floor. Yeah, I think it's next.
Yep.
I think its next step is the Senate floor. Yeah. And this bill is really great because kind of like Heidi said, it decriminalizes street vending while still allowing some local flexibility on regulation. So in the past, when this has been tried, local governments have come out and merchants associations, restaurant associations, folks like that have come out in really strong opposition to something like this, saying that there's health code concerns and local governments were concerned about preemption. What's really cool about this bill is that rather than addressing this idea of we need to regulate it from the state and legalize at the state level, we'll say, hey, why don't we just remove both forwardly and retroactively remove street walk vending from the penal code, so decriminalize it, while setting up a framework for regulation to give local governments flexibility, but baked into the cities and counties' abilities to regulate are protections for street vendors in terms of where street vendors are allowed to sell, the restrictions on permits, like that kind of thing. There's protections baked into the regulatory framework that the state is essentially handing down to the city, saying, here's what you can do, here's what you can't. Getting around a lot of those kind of questions about state preemption. So yeah, I think it's a really cool bill, kind of an ingenious way to do it, and that's being sponsored by Senator Laura.
Yeah.
And Opportunity
Cool.
Fund's in strong support of that bill.
Yeah, Cameo weighed in with support, and if anybody needs a draft support letter, I'm more than happy to send you a copy. Just email me. There's two more bills that I just wanted to point out. One is AB 2066. It's to extend the Cali ITC credit, and the interesting piece about that, it extends it to people who are excluded from in the program right now, and that includes young adults ages 18 to 24 and older seniors over 65. But the interesting thing that I thought was it also expands it to low-income working immigrant families with ITINs, and I know that sometimes a lot of these people earn extra money with self-employment. So I thought that was kind of an interesting bill to be heard. It hasn't been heard yet. It's in the tax committee and it's waiting for a hearing. I don't know when it's going to be, when it's on the agenda. If anybody wants to is thinking serious about supporting that, again, email me and I'm happy to give you more information or point you in the right direction. And then one more bill that I thought was really cool, but it got pulled, which I'm totally bummed about. But I just wanted to bring it up to kind of show people what's possible. And that's a Marisucci bill. Basically, this bill was going to reduce the filing fees for LLCs from $800 to $100 for companies under $150,000. Really kind of a cool bill, I thought, for our micro businesses. But it got pulled. So you can call Marisucci's office if you want and say, hey, why did this get pulled? Yeah, and then I'm going to turn it over to Gabe for a few minutes, and then we do have to wrap up pretty close to 3. But I'm going to give it to Gabe for maybe keep it short, Gabe, and then turn it. Mark did text me and was able to join us, and he'll just give us a quick update on healthcare. So Gabe, give it away.
Absolutely. Do you want me to talk about both bills or just? Yes. Yeah,
both bills quickly.
Gotcha. So Senate Bill 551, Senator Wessel, where Opportunity Fund is actually the sponsor of that bill. So what this bill does is that it moves the Capital Access Loan Program for small businesses, or CalCAP, CalCAP for short. It removes that program from the Treasurer's office over to the office, over to iBank. So it's essentially, it's taking this program, which is a state kind of state-held loan loss reserve program, where lenders can enroll in the program, put funding in, get a match, put all that pools together, and as you make more loans, that pool grows, and that pool can be used to cover any charge-offs that you might experience, and this acts often as a buffer for one, just regular operations, but two, also in case fingers crossed it doesn't happen, but another economic downturn where losses, particularly for small business lenders, can be very high. This helps. Excuse me. This helps provide a bit of a buffer. So what this is doing is moving that program from the Treasurer's office over to iBank, and we're the sponsors of that bill, and that's really happening because we think that the expertise needed to really drive the program forward and really run that program really well. A lot of that expertise is housed under. It makes sense for it to be housed under the governor's office with with iBank, which is their purpose is infrastructure, small business, and economic development. So that bill right now is in Assembly Jetty Committee as well, and will probably be heard sometime later in the summer. And I'm happy to talk, and I don't know if there's any CalCap enrolled. I think, Jen, you guys are CalCap enrolled lenders, so I email you a lot. But if you have any questions about that, I'm happy to answer. But quickly, SB 1235, Senator Glazer. So this is kind of like the slide says. This is essentially a Truth in Lending Act for commercial financing. Essentially, we know that after 2008, with the sort of the decrease in bank lending to small businesses, within the gap that is left by that decrease in bank lending, a lot of new entrants have come in. A lot of folks online offering merchant cash advance products, factoring products, kind of this generally under the umbrella of purchasing receivables financing products that can be applied for online and gone in minutes. Which is great, but we also know that with the explosion of these products, there's also been an increase in high cost lending, which very closely mirrors payday lending. And one of the big issues, the reason we think that this is happening, is that there isn't any transparency around how terms are disclosed, and there's no standard way in which business owners can compare different financial products to know the true cost of capital of what they're getting. An example of this for merchant cash advances and factoring, they'll talk about factor rates or cents on the dollar, and they'll disclose interest rate, but without a familiar metric, kind of like APR, we think that the cost of financing can be obfuscated. So what this bill essentially does is make it so that lenders, regardless of the type of product you're offering, have to disclose the total amount of financing, the APR or estimated APR for cash advances, the total monthly payments, total cost of financing, prepayment policies, term length, annualized interest rate, and all of this needs to be disclosed at the time of the offer, and the borrower actually needs to sign a document saying that they reviewed all of this, and that needs to be included and bundled and stored with all the loan docs. So that's SB 1235. It was heard in Senate Banking yesterday. Is now heading over to the Senate Judiciary.
Great. Well, thanks. Thanks. Yeah. Now, I bet Mark I don't know if Mark has something else to add. We're going to bring on Mark Herbert from Small Business Majority I don't know if you want to talk about Truth in Lending, start there, or talk about healthcare and give us a little bit of update on what's happening on that.
Yeah, thanks, Heidi. Thank you, Gabe.
Sure,
and thanks for the opportunity to chat with everyone this afternoon. I know we only have a few minutes left, so I'll try to be quick here. I just want to echo everything everyone said. I mean, we're strong supporters of all the bills that have been listed. We think that they're going to do really help drive sort of the small business and entrepreneurial case in Sacramento. Our CO was able to testify yesterday in support of the Truth in Lending bill. We think it's hopefully going to be able to create a lot more transparency when small employers and entrepreneurs are looking for financing. So we're really excited about that. And thanks to Opportunity Fund for all the work that they've done around that bill, and really appreciate all that they've done with the Responsible Business Lending Coalition, as well as all of Cameo's support on that. I'll just do a quick plug for healthcare. So the context for healthcare is kind of crazy in Sacramento right now. Last year, there was a huge fight nationally, as everyone knows, around is the ACA going to be repealed or not. There's also a huge fight here in California. Are we going to have single payer or not? And so there's sort of these two huge debates raging. And so the speaker put together a series of hearings over the fall through the new year to come up with ideas of how we move forward to build on what we have and also strengthen our marketplace and strengthen our healthcare system here in California. So there are a whole host of bills really driving towards universal coverage here in California with the idea to try to get as many folks into the insurance markets as possible. And I just want to highlight a couple that are the priorities of a lot of the advocates in Sacramento. There's a package of sort of 4 bills that will essentially get us as close to universal coverage as we've ever been here in California to ensure that most folks have coverage. And we know on the individual market here in Covered California, there are over 370,000 self-employed entrepreneurs who get their insurance through Covered California. We know that there are roughly 500,000 small business owners who get their insurance through Medi-Cal, and because of the Medi-Cal expansion, created an opportunity for these entrepreneurs to have access to health insurance. And we know there are roughly 1 million small business employees who get their insurance through Medi-Cal. So the Medi-Cal and the individual market in California have been incredibly instrumental in ensuring that entrepreneurs and their employees are able to access insurance. So 2 bills that will expand Medi-Cal. So there's SB 974 from Senator Lara and AB 2965 from Assemblyman Arambula. These bills have identical language, and they would extend full scope Medi-Cal to all undocumented Californians to ensure that the vast majority of Californians who are on the lower income side of things are still able to access health insurance marketplace. That's the biggest chunk of folks in California who still don't have health insurance. And so by expanding the pool, you're going to create a much more dynamic and robust marketplace to ensure that folks are able to access quality products. So that's a huge step. And then there's another package of bills that's specifically addressing affordability. So it's AB 2459, which is from Assemblywoman Friedman, AB 2565 from Assemblymember Chu, and AB 3148 from Assemblymember Arambula. And all 3 of these bills, essentially, they do a lot of things, but in 1 minute, essentially what they do is if you pay more than 8% of your income towards your health insurance, you will get a refundable state tax credit to ensure that you don't actually have to pay more than that 8%. So regardless of whether you get a federal tax subsidy or maybe you make just a little bit too much to get a federal tax subsidy for your health insurance, the state will step in to ensure that all Californians are not paying more than 8% of their income towards health insurance. And all the research shows that by making this more affordable, we're going to extend coverage to just about every Californian. So these 4 bills, they're currently all, I think they all passed out of their committees this week, and they're all in the Appropriations Committee. And so these 4 bills would get us here in California closer to universal coverage for all Californians accessing quality insurance than we've ever been before. And with that, I'll hand it back over to Heidi because I know we're running out.
Woof. Wow. So does anybody have any questions on any? I mean, I know we ran through that really quick. We just wanted to kind of highlight some of those issues for you because they do affect small business, and it's something Small Business Majority is working on healthcare since I've known them. The other issues, you know that we've been very involved, and all the people on the call have been very involved in the Small Business Borrowers Bill of Rights. So we're all about the truth in lending, and some of the other issues, the home cottage care, the cottage kitchen issues. There we go. Does anybody have any questions? Well, with that, I want to thank everybody. We've already thanked Ann and Jesse. I want to put a tremendous shout out to Gabe and Opportunity Fund and Mark and Small Business Majority. They've both been great partners and good friends to Cameo and the sector. So thank you for joining us, and I thank all of you for participating. And I'll send out a couple of the resources, the Word doc for your delegation letters and the budget change proposal that talks about the governor's $20 million in a follow-up email to all the attendees. So thanks. Have a great afternoon, everybody.
Thank you, Heidi.
Bye-bye. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. Please stand by.